Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is today, and welcome back. I hope your week is unfolding oh so beautifully well. It's Wednesday. It's all downhill from here. Hopefully, you're accomplishing everything you set your mind to because we've got business to attend to today. We've got some Kilmar updates, and there's a second look that's happening at the withholding order. Remember, they kept telling us that there was a clear order from a judge. Don't send him to El Salvador. A judge said you can't do that specifically. Well, we're looking at this again in further detail, and that's not really the case exactly. And so we've already had the thesis here about the poison pill DOJ attorney called Ruvani. And now we've got our hands on official documents that have come over from the Tennessee Star, which were already public, but we've got a nice chain of custody here. And what we're seeing is this, that in the conclusion of the order for withholding, the judge was referencing Guatemala, okay, not El Salvador at all. And some people are saying, well, that is just a mistake. What he meant was El Salvador. And it's very interesting how they'll come out if there's an administrative error that benefits a gangbanging MS-13 wife-beaten illegal alien in our country. They'll just have you come in there and just substitute that word Guatemala for El Salvador, but not so fast. Okay, we found a lot more on this. We found another great article flagged for us over on X that was written explaining, there's going to be a companion form here. And in the companion form, they should be picking one country. Okay, you're not listing like 50 different countries there, Guatemala and El Salvador and all the things. And we've got some thoughts on this. So there's explanations on this saying, well, no, this other person and the DOJ affirmed that it was a mistake and that we need to see the other form and more. But we're going to come back on that and really parse through that. And apparently, people have been talking about this for a little bit. We're a little slow on the uptake here. So next time we're back here, I'm going to buy Hooked on Phonics or something and learn how to read, because I'm pretty sure we already looked at that order and didn't make that connection previously here. But a lot of people are looking at it, and the poison pill rears their head yet again. So we're going to spend some time on that today and really derail, I think, their entire case, because they, I think, are pulling a fast one on everybody. Should pick one country. They had a poison pill. They submitted this in as it's an El Salvador removal. And I have not seen that. Okay. And honestly, if you're out there and you've seen a document anywhere, a minute order, anywhere that is a specific order, a withholding of removal order, saying El Salvador specifically, please send it to me on X. Please email it to me so that we can look at it, because everybody's just been presuming that it exists. And I doubt that it does. So we'll go through that. We'll go through what they submitted, courtesy of the CASA folks and others, all in that first segment. And then we got some other strange business happening on this case. This case is strange because on April 23rd, that's the day, we got two sealed filings in this case. Remember, we've been checking in on these updates, and they've been filing these status reports. Yeah, no, Kilmar's having margaritas with Democrats again. That's their updates, right, to Judge Zenas. But here, what they have submitted are these sealed motions. Sealed for what? Why can't we read them? I wonder what's going on there. So we'll go through that in the first segment. Then we'll talk about this TdA arrest, because 27 members of this terroristic gang have gotten arrested or indicted. 27 indicted. I think there's still several of them at large, so be apprised. But 27 members of TdA now indicted, and we'll take a look at what the charges look like, because we got some juicy indictments that have come out. This is also weird. Why are they in the Southern District of New York? I have no idea. I think they kind of like gangbangers there. So I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be a successful prosecution or not, but somebody's being prosecuted, and it's terroristic TdA gangbangers. And then we also heard this story about this person who was released from custody in California. This individual was convicted for eliminating two people seen here. May they rest in peace. What a shame and a horrific tragedy. Saying that this dude was responsible for eliminating them. He got a 10-year sentence in California. They're like, oh, well, it's just two dead people, so we'll just let you out after 3. So they let him out, or going to let him out. And the feds have turned around and said, not so fast. Okay, we're going to prosecute you. U.S. Attorney S.I.L. Lee came out and said new charges are coming. And so that will be happening very soon. Now, hopefully, the tubes are fired up and working appropriately, and everybody is here. Happy Wednesday. Saying we're hitting the refresh button. Hopefully, it's all good. Perfect. All right, cool. Is Trump out right now? Is Trump speaking or doing signing stuff right now? Let me take a quick look and just see. I was not aware of that. Is he speaking from the Oval Office at the moment? Let's see. He is not. All right, cool. So nothing live that I see from C-SPAN. So we'll stay on track. All right. So my friends, we're in business. We're good. It's all good. All systems go. Amazing. Thanks for being here. Membos, we had a great members only stream this morning. Thank you for being membos. And thanks to everybody who is gifting membos. We have a bunch of new membos. We're having a ton of fun in the morning streams. Come join us 12 noon Eastern if you want to check it out. Grab some extra content. Meet the best people in the whole galaxy in our members only streams. Come check it out. All right, so let's get into business on the day. All right, so this is something that is curious. All right, here we go. A second look at Kilmar, wife beater Abrego's order of removal, and more specifically, the withholding of removal that came down. Remember, the Democrats started this case off with a poison pill attorney called Ezra Ruvani, who was fired after being suspended. But they told us from the outset, and there was a very weird start to this case. Remember, they took this case, filed it in Maryland in Judge Zenas's courtroom, and then she just took it and ran with it. But they told us, El Salvador, don't remove this dude to El Salvador. And we have still not seen an order that gives us ultimate clarity on this. This is what they're referencing when they tell us that. And we've gone through this. We're going to take a quick look at it again with a little bit more detail than last time, because we had a different point to make the last time we were talking about this. But if you read the conclusion of this document, it's a 15-pager. You'll see this is the judge writing, Judge David M. Jones, the judge, of course, who is an immigration judge, Article 2 judge out of Baltimore, Maryland, working under the DOJ for immigration. He wrote this, and this is the final order, and you'll notice there are no names of countries in the final order. Now, we're going to read another article that's going to walk us through the companion document that should be with this that nobody has seen, nobody can find. But in there, there's no El Salvador. There's no document. So when they say, well, there's an order, the respondent's withholding of removal is granted for what country? In the concluding paragraph, the judge wrote, Kilmar's application for asylum, he doesn't get that. It's time barred. Remember, he was in the country illegally for way too long. He can't claim asylum. However, he has established past persecution based on a protected ground and the presumption of well-founded fear of future persecution. Now, DHS Homeland, this is again back in 2019, says they have not shown that there are changed circumstances in Guatemala, not El Salvador, that would result in the respondent's life not being threatened, or that internal relocation is possible and reasonable under the circumstances. So we can't send this dude to Guatemala. Therefore, the application for withholding under the act is granted. Okay, so therefore means it's based on that. You can't send him to Guatemala. Finally, his claims against torture fails because he's not shown he's going to suffer torture anywhere. All right, so in Guatemala at the hands of the government. So we read that, and we were still in the context of El Salvador, and I think we may have read that here on the stream and just glanced right over that. But the point on this, which is very curious, is that there should be another form that joins in on this. And somebody who can read much better than us has probably completed Hooked on Phonics multiple times. On April 4th, this dude, Andrew R. Arthur, shared this great piece over from the Center for Immigration Studies, Low Immigration, Pro-Immigrant, right? They posted this from Arthur. Shout out to that dude. Says, by the way, when you go back through this and you ask about Guatemala, there's some questions on this, because here the immigration judge raises other issues, saying, while the judge's memo of decision and order is enlightening, we'll take a look at it, we'll read it. it conveys no legal authority in and of itself, right? At the time he issued it, the immigration judge should have issued a separate pre-printed form referred to as a minute order, right? And you see this all the time. Like you see this when, even in criminal cases, they fill out, there's a bunch of check boxes, report to the jail by this time, check, check, check. Don't contact the victim, give up this and return over this, or okay, whatever, report to probation at the end. Check, check, check. Here, okay, fine. And the attorney gets it, looks at it and says, all right, judge. Good. You don't want to check. That's an important box. Like everybody checks it. The attorney signs it. The defendant signs it. Everybody signs it so you know what the order is. So he says it's a separate form. Now, on that form, the immigration judge would have checked boxes showing that he denied asylum, right? No. And claims against torture, no. But granted statutory withholding, just like the order said, which Abrego Garcia would have needed to present to prove that he had lawful status in the United States. So he's carrying this thing around. Now, that minute order, however, would have also shown that Abrego, wife beater, was ordered removed and listed the country, one, to which removal was ordered but withheld. Yeah. Now, as I explained above, statutory withholding is country specific, okay? So you don't just get to like pick a list of countries like you're at a drive-through. One country. Now, in practice, what we've learned is that generally, right, they can't go back to that one country, and that country is their place of residency or citizenship. So they can't send them anywhere, right? Other countries aren't going to accept them. Like, well, we're going to send you to Russia. Like, we don't want that dude. No, not ours. So then we end up keeping him, right? So in practice, an order of withholding is basically you stay here forever. Country specific, one country, but no minute order appears in the record in his federal case. It's one country. So for those people who are like, oh, it's a mistake, it's a ministerial error, it's something that is a problem, right? They set it on the record and they corrected it after the fact. No, that's a pretty damn big mistake. If he's screwing up the country, okay, and don't be a bigot, okay? Guatemala is different than El Salvador. They're distinct nation states. They're not the same. So it's very distinct. Logically, the country of removal would have been El Salvador, given the fact that he's a citizen there. But the only problem is that the immigration judge in the decision that is granting statutory withholding calls it into question. The judge talks about Guatemala in the decision. Says, he states on page 4, we'll read through it, brings it up again on page 8. Finally, he says again, there are no changed circumstances in Guatemala that would result in his life not being threatened, right? It's kind of confusing to hear that because it's kind of a double negative. Not shown that things are better. So since things are not better, we can't send him there. Now, each of those excerpts that we'll read through again is crucial to the immigration judge's ultimate decision on the withholding. In fact, they're the most important sections of the whole decision because they show the threat that the applicant claimed was ongoing. They couldn't move him to Guatemala. Now, there is no minute order. If there is no minute order, like if the judge didn't fill that form out, where is it? We don't know. Then this decision is the order of the court. And the removal to El Salvador is wholly in accordance with the court's decision. If there is a minute order, it may say that yes, that with removal was withheld to Guatemala. But even if it didn't, after reading the merits decision granting withholding, it was only to Guatemala. Okay, the government has been castigated for admitting that it removed to administrative error. No, that was a poison pill from the beginning. That attorney, Irez Ruvani, just wait. He's going to end up at Perkins Coie or someplace, all right? Just mark my words. May not be that law firm, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is. 1 year from now, the dude who submitted that claim saying it was an administrative error, it never was. But it certainly wasn't the only error that occurred during the history of this case. After looking at the judge's confusing decision, I understand why the government believed it was appropriate to send Abrego to El Salvador. And just to clear something else up, remember, we were asking, how did this case come about? Because we didn't think that there was a petition for habeas that came out. And here's what happened, right? They delayed on this. This is why there was no habeas petition. This article is great. Shout out to Arthur. Says, according to the Times, Abrego Garcia was granted withholding of removal in 2019. But for what? But was stopped on March 12th and then was sent to El Salvador 3 days later. Now, for reasons that aren't clear, we never really got this. Neither the Abrego Garcia nor his family attempted to seek his release following the arrest, right? Nobody cared. Like, all right, see you, man. And in fact, only his wife apparently realized he'd been sent to El Salvador after she got photos of him. Then 9 days after he arrived in El Salvador, Abrego, his wife, minor child, through counsel, they filed a complaint for injunctive relief in Maryland, right? That's what we saw it in Maryland. And we were saying, well, why don't you just go file a habeas? They didn't. They waited too long. In a case titled Abrego, and they went to Maryland, and then they just made up this situation like he shouldn't have been sent to El Salvador. Why? Attached to that complaint is a decision and order by the immigration judge in Baltimore denying the asylum under 1 year. It identifies as a native of El Salvador, and he admitted he entered the country illegally. And he explained, okay, at the bond hearing, you can't get out, and it is country specific. And so let's see where he talked about that. Yeah, it is country specific. He says, statutory withholding, less known, is a separate humanitarian protection titled as restriction on removal. There's a lot of similarities between the two of them, but it's statutory withholding of removal. And it's very different than removability. The key distinction has to do with discretion. And as we saw, it applies to one country. Okay, so Guatemala was the country that was listed in there. Now, what will happen is people will point back and they'll say that the DOJ affirmed this, which is a completely valid point. And what we saw is in the filings, and we covered this filing once before when we were talking about the poison pill attorney. And by the way, I've consolidated a lot of these notes over at the Lodge, watcherlodge.com, if you want to check it out. So I created this section called Withholding of Removal for Guatemala. And David Jones was the judge who ultimately issued that order on the 19th, October 2019. And if you recall, Ruvani, he was the attorney who was the attorney until April 7th when he was suspended, and then he got fired on April 15th. Remember those dates. Now, Robert Cerna was the acting field office director who, I don't know when he got appointed to be the acting field office director, but he submitted a declaration, right? In that declaration, these are the excerpts from his declaration that everybody's latching onto to say the DOJ basically affirmed this removal was appropriate. But here's what he says, right? This guy may have just come right in. And to be clear, it would be my understanding, right? If you're the U.S. attorney who's representing and acting on the case, you're going to communicate with the people you're getting declarations from, right? You're like, hey, I'm the U.S. attorney. This judge is mad. We just deported this dude. All right, I need you to tell me what happened. He's like, I don't know what happened. What does this say? He's like, and the attorney says, well, here's our interpretation of it. Feeds that to this new dude, acting director, Robert Cerna. Then Cerna just fills out this declaration and submits it. This got submitted on March 31st, right? Ruvani was fired after this got submitted. So on October 10th, he said the IJ ordered his removal, but granted withholding of removal to El Salvador, which I don't know where he got that. Like, where did he get that? That would be a great question at a deposition. The grant of protection prohibited his removal to El Salvador. Again, where'd that come from? Because we didn't see it in the judicial order. ICE was aware of a grant of withholding of removal at the time of his removal from the United States. Reference was made to the status on internal forms. And that I would agree with, right? That doesn't say anything about what country. That just says, yeah, he does have withholding of removal to Guatemala. That's fine. But this is the poison pill, right? Through administrative error, Garcia was removed to El Salvador. Why? This was an oversight. How? The removal was carried out in good faith based on the existence of a final order of removal and Garcia's purported membership in MS-13. Where? On what basis, right? Where did... I'd like to know what he saw. What did those internal forms show? Because from what we see, the judge picked one country, and it was called Guatemala. So we'll come back to those notes. But here is what the order said, right? This is the order. It's withholding of removal, and it's very clear that it is Guatemala. And in this, he references Guatemala. It makes perfect sense why you wouldn't send him to Guatemala, because that's where the family left to. They left El Salvador, and they went to Guatemala. And just to be ultra clear for all of the people on the left who I think they're starting to move on from this story because they realize it's kind of bad politics to defend a wife-beating, human trafficking, illegal alien who's a part of a terroristic gang in our country. So I think they're starting to move on. They're like, we're not going to go down on that trip. They canceled that. Hopefully they got insurance, or not. But remember, this is out of the DOJ, these removal proceedings. And this is how immigration works. You don't get to go file claims in Maryland because you like Judge Zenas, rhymes with. This is an immigration court which operates under Article 2. It's not an Article 3 court. Okay, illegal aliens don't get access to the Article 3 courts in the same way that everybody else does because they're illegal. It is an administrative function to determine whether they're lawful or not and get them out. It's been that way forever until Trump came in. So this, as we recall, our original argument was Trump could override this immediately. Trump could send him to El Salvador or Guatemala if he wants to, because the Alien Enemies Act ends the withholding by operation of law, which is passed by Congress, right, and codified in the statutes that we've articulated here in the notes at the Lodge. But here's what the judge said, right? The respondent is a native and citizen of El Salvador, which I think is why they were trying to shoehorn this in here. Says Homeland issued a notice to appear. And to be clear, I also wanted to share this. Okay, this is where the document came from. And this cover sheet is different than what they published. So this was originally released by them. And this came over from wearecasa.org. Okay, they're very happy about what they're prosecuting here on behalf of the illegals. So they submitted this. This was their brief to the Fourth Circuit. And in this brief, they did submit a copy of the final order. And it's somewhere down in here, a bunch of stuff, a bunch of affidavits from Jennifer, the wife, and a bunch of other things. But they do have the order in here at some point. My point was they didn't have that cover sheet on there. And the cover sheet is here, and it tells us that this went over to CAIR, right? CAIR, the coalition. And that is a coalition that has changed now. They now call themselves AMICA, the AMICA group. They say that they are the American Center for Immigration Rights, formerly the CAIR Coalition, unwavering legal defense and litigation for wife-beating illegals. All right, so they were representing him, and they said, okay, the court sent this notice to them. All right, unable to forward, attached is a copy of the decision of an immigration judge. This decision is final, can't appeal it within 30 days. If you have questions, your fee waiver request, mail there. Attached is a copy of a decision as a result of your failure to appear at your scheduled removal hearing and your deportation or removal hearing. So is there also a failure to appear? Like this guy also didn't show up to his court date? The decision is final unless a motion to reopen is submitted. Attaches a copy of the decision. You have 30 days to appeal with the appropriate circuit court. Otherwise, you lose that option, okay? And just, again, once again, point out, this is due process right here. And guess what? This dude's name is on this document. Abrego Garcia, Kilmar Armado. They left out wife-beating, human trafficking, illegal alien, MS-13 gang member, but they got the rest of his name on there. Now, it's due process. He got it. Final order. He had 30 days to do it. He didn't do any of it. Here's what the judge wrote. All right, the respondent's a native. He has already confirmed he's not a citizen of the U.S. He's a native of El Salvador, entered the U.S. at an unknown place, unknown date illegally. He was not admitted or paroled. At master calendar, they admitted the factual allegations in the notice to appear and conceded removability as charged. Just to be clear, we know he's illegal. We are allowed to remove him. That's out of the way. They admitted it by a judge in due process land to make him happy. Based on their admissions and concessions, the court found his removability to be established by clear and convincing evidence. Now, as other relief, the court reserved the matter. So we've considered a bunch of things, right? They submitted a bunch of exhibits, and these are just wild exhibits. We're under attack, right? All these exhibits, the wife's pregnant, all testimony's been admitted and considered, and here's the story. They say Kilmar is a 24-year-old native of El Salvador, born in 1995 in El Salvador. He testified that he fears returning to his country, you presume El Salvador, because of the Barrio 18 gang targeting, threatening him with death, attacking the pupusa business. What are pupusas? They're El Salvadorian stuffed tortillas. We saw that before. Now, the mama, Cecilia, ran the business out of her home. Although the business had no formal storefront, everyone in town knew to get their pupusas from Pupiceria Cecilia. Now, the father, brother, and two sisters all help run the family business. The job was to go to the grocery store of Kilmar to buy pupusa supplies needed for the pupusas. And then he and his brother would do deliveries 4 days a week to people in the neighborhood that ordered pupusas. But then at some point, Barrio 18 realized the family was making money from their pupusa business, and they started to extort Mama Cecilia. They demanded a regular stipend of rent money, beginning with a monthly payment requiring weekly payments. The gang threatened to harm Kilmar, his older brother Caesar, and the family if their demands are not met. They said, if you don't give us this money, Caesar is going to become a part of our gang. So they paid the money on a regular basis whenever they could, and they hid Caesar from the gang. On one occasion, the gang came to the family's home, threatened to eliminate Caesar if the family did not pay the rent, and so they just shipped him to the U.S. They're like, oh man, you can go to America. They're not going to kill you in America. Now, after Caesar left, the gang started recruiting Kilmar. They told Cecilia that she would not have to pay rent anymore if she let him join the gang. Mom said, no, he's not going to join the gang. They said, oh yeah, we're going to take him out. So when he was around 12 years old, I guess the gang came back. They told Cecilia, we're going to take him because you're not paying us papusa money. The respondent's father stopped the gang from taking Kilmar away by paying the gang all the money that they wanted. And during those days, the gang would watch Kilmar at school as he went back and forth and said, we're going to bring you into our gang, little Kilmar, or give us that papusa money. The members of the gangs all had tattoos and they always carried weapons when they were attacking a 12-year-old. Now, eventually the family had enough. So they said, okay, this is terrible. Our 12-year-old's getting attacked by gang members. So what'd they do? They moved. Sounds smart, but they moved 10 minutes away. Oh no, to Los Nogales. The town was 10 minutes away. Shortly after the family moved, they said, oh, well, they're just around the block. Like, we're going to go get some chicken fingers. Do you want to just swing by the Kilmars? And let their fellow gang members, they said, oh no, they got papusas over there. Oh yeah, let's go. Gang members know that the family had moved to the neighborhood. So then the gang visited the house demanding rent money for those papusas again. You're not getting away from us. I think was this the plot of one of those Bad Boys movies with Will Smith? I think it was. They went to the house twice, threatening to attack and kill the two sisters. The respondents' parents were so fearful that they kept Kilmar inside the home as much as possible. Finally, the family decided they had to close the papusa business, and then they had to move again. Where'd they move this time? Oh yeah, 15 minutes down the road again. Even at this new location, the judge is like, they had to keep Kilmar indoors because of threats on his life. Here you go. After 4 months of living in fear, they sent Kilmar to the U.S. because we'll just take care of it. No problem. 4 months. Wow. Shocking. You moved twice, 15 minutes away. Great work. Now, even though the respondent's father, check this out, was a former policeman, the family never reported anything. Isn't that convenient? About the gang extorting the family business. No reports. It's a father. The gang members threatened Mama, telling her if she ever reported anything, we're going to eliminate your whole family. And the family believed him because they were well aware of the corruption in El Salvador. They believed that they reported it to the police would do nothing. And now, here it comes. At present, even though the family has now shut down the papusa business, the Barrio 18 gang continues to harass and threaten Kilmar's two sisters and parents in Guatemala. In Guatemala, right? That's where they're living. That's where he would return. That's the family. Additionally, they have targeted a brother-in-law who also lives there. They're not even in El Salvador anymore. Now, the respondent's wife also testified, but her testimony related to two other particular social groups not reached in this decision. And what they have to do, right, is say that he's a part of a community that's under attack. That's why we can't send him back. So they're going to define the family as the community. It's the Papusa family. So they also said, well, we're also part of this group, the MS-13 male group. So that, and we're also immediate family of Jennifer Vasquez, who's a citizen. So like he's part of that group for protection, or he's part of this group for protection. And the court said, no, we don't have to put them in either one of those buckets. We'll just put them in the El Salvador Papusa bucket. And that's going to be good enough for them because papusas are good. So they wrote, so an applicant for asylum bears the burden. Obviously, he did not. Fear of persecution is another thing. Says they have an evidentiary burden of proving this. The Board of Immigration Appeals has recognized a bunch of things and more. But in the instant matter, they say Kilmar provided credible responses to the questions asked. His testimony was consistent. He appeared to provide substantial documents and affidavits from his family that described the papusa business, described the threats to various family members, and the court found that credible, right? Because they wrote a bunch of letters and affidavits. And if you've ever been through this, you may have written a letter from somebody, even in DUI cases and stuff like this, or domestic violence cases. You go out, this is not Rob. I never saw him like this. This is unbecoming of him. I know him as an upstanding father and a great person and all thing. You go, can you write something for me? Like, you're kind of just write it. Okay. Just please. Okay, fine. Okay. You better be nice to me though, moving forward. All right. I'll write it. The court finds the respondent credible. Now, there was a 1-year filing deadline. Remember, he came in here illegally. Now suddenly he's claiming asylum. I'm under attack. Why don't you file asylum then and follow our rules? So you break the law, break into the country, and then don't even apply for asylum when we're so generous to offer it to you. So he comes in here, missed the 1-year deadline. It's untimely, can't do that. Now look at this little squiggle on this document here. Here, the respondent's asylum application is time barred. Sorry, you missed it. He testified he entered the U.S. in 2012, but he did not file his application until July 2019. But originally, it was August 2019. So if this was a mistake, if there was an error, if Guatemala really should have been El Salvador, why didn't the judge just cross it out and scribble in there El Salvador when he was proofreading this order? Why did he write an order, find a mistake, and correct it, and not correct another mistake? Because it's Guatemala. 7 years after his entry into the U.S. and beyond, he has shown no change or extraordinary circumstances that would entitle him to the 1-year bar, so he's gone. Now, withholding of removal, right? Then we get into this. Here's the rules on how withholding works. We also talk about past prosecution and how to interpret that. Now, the respondent has suffered this persecution as he was threatened on more than one occasion. And the DHS bears the burden of showing that that has changed. Okay, this dude's under attack. You got to show he's not under attack if you want to send him back. Now, an alien has to show certain things, and persecution can take many forms. But based on the above, Kilmar has demonstrated that he was subject to past persecution on a protected ground. He's entitled to the presumption that this could happen again. And given his testimony and evidence concerning official corruption and other abuses, he's demonstrated authorities would not be able to protect him. Given country conditions and his inability to avoid the threat in internal relocation, this whole paragraph, the respondent could not necessarily avoid the threat through internal relocation, nor would it be reasonable to expect him to do so. Here it comes. Homeland has failed to carry their burden to show that there are changed circumstances in Guatemala that would result in his life not being threatened, or that internal relocation is possible and reasonable. You see El Salvador in that paragraph anywhere? No. The facts here show that the Barrio gang continues to harass them in El Salvador. In fact, the family had to move 3 times. Now, to be cognizable under the statute, you got to show these things. Under Fourth Circuit precedent, family ties may be a basis for a social group. So remember, they were trying to shove him in. No, like, illegally identified MS-13 gangbang. No, not in that group. How about friends and family of Jennifer Vasquez? Nope, not that group. Well, how about a family is a social group? Yeah, he says, maybe. Membership in a perceived criminal gang is not a social group, obviously. But whether this is a family social group is one reason, and gives us some other cases from other situations. But he says the evidence in this case, quite clearly, at least one central reason for the past prosecution is because he was his mama's son and he was a member of the nuclear family. That the respondent is his mother's son is the reason why he, not another reason, was threatened with death, right? So it's because he is the Papusa errand boy that he's in danger, not because he's affiliated with the gang or doing anything like that. He was threatened with death because he was Cecilia's son, and the gang targeted Mama to get the Papusa money. Now, the court finds that this social group, the family, is cognizable. It's immutable. He can't change this. He can't leave the family. So the family is now a protected class, and he's a part of it. Now, with respect to the social distinction, like, is the Papusa business notable enough, like a Wikipedia article? Yeah, neighbors and others in the community saw the Papusa business was a distinct business. Everyone knew that Cecilia was where you go. You get your pupusas over there. And Kilmar is going to deliver those pupusas to your house 4 days a week. And so it is recognizable. He says, but this case is a close call, though. The Abrego family was socially distinct. It's similar to another case. He says, this is a close call, but the Papusa business is well known. And so again, mom, like, this case is connected to mom, right? Connected to mom. Where is mom? Guatemala. Hello. She had to move. The applicant for withholding of removal under the CAT bears the burden of proving, and claims against torture, they obviously lose that one. So all of it here, the respondent has not shown that he's going to be tortured if he were removed to El Salvador. Okay, so then there comes back El Salvador. So they talk about his upbringing. The whole family moves to Guatemala. Sister's there, everybody's there. Judge talks about Guatemala and saying Homeland has not made a presentation there. The judge's final order in conclusion says there again, once again, are not any evidence. There's no evidence that he's going to be safe in Guatemala. So you can't send him to Guatemala. Signed, order of withholding is granted. Don't send him to Guatemala. Guess what? Trump didn't send him to Guatemala. Now, the poison pill came out in the form of Ruvani, who was then later fired, as we've already talked about. And this article explains it is country specific, written here by Andrew R. Arthur. The judge picks a country. It's not a list of countries. I'd like to also not go here or go here. I hear Russia's bad at this time of year. Argentina, Javier Milei, I don't really like a lot of his policies all that much. So can you send me not there, Judge? No, you're not going to Guatemala. But other places you can go. So it seems like everything thus far is in order. And the poison pill DOJ attorney who was fired, who cajoled an inaccurate declaration from Robert Cerna, infected the case. And then they filed this in Judge Zenas' courtroom and took it from there. And they didn't file until he was already gone. He's from El Salvador originally. Family moved to Guatemala, said can't go back to Guatemala, but El Salvador is perfect. Now, if they've got some other evidence on this, if the CASA folks have some other evidence, they've already put this all together in this big, massive document, 198 pages. They submitted it to the Fourth Circuit. Why don't they come out? Just give us the minute order. Just show. He says El Salvador. Show it in there. And all of the adoptions of the erroneous declarations should be considered invalid. And I don't know what the DOJ is doing, not making this argument more aggressively. Maybe they know something that we don't know. Maybe the minute order comes out and says El Salvador is included on there. But we have not seen it. And I have not seen anybody else who has shared a copy of it. If you have one, I'd love to see it. We'll come here and show it on the screen. But at this moment, we have not seen it. And that's always a curious thing. You'd think if they had a very clear order that said, don't remove this dude to El Salvador, release it. Just publish it. Don't send him to El Salvador. Very simple. But they don't have that. Why don't they have that? And why did Judge Zenas just take this case up and run with it? Because maybe it doesn't exist. Okay, so we got some more spicy business happening here. As we saw at the start of the show, on April 23rd, we got 2 additional filings. Let's do a refresh to see if anything dropped while we were live here. Doesn't look like it. But sealed responses coming in. A motion to stay regarding the order on the motion for other relief. We don't know what it is. It's sealed, but they want a stay, right? And the judge is asking for discovery, remember, back and forth. We want interrogatories. We want documents. We covered all that yesterday. But the judge is now saying, or they're asking for a stay. Then there was a response also sealed, filed by the Kilmar wife beater attorneys in response. And so we'll see what the judge says there. But there's some other things happening. Are they bringing him back? Are they telling him, actually, we figured it out? The order in Guatemala was the order. El Salvador is perfect. Or what? What is it? We don't know. But a lot is filed under seal. Now, this continues to get worse. But I've also assembled a couple of notes on the Kilmar situation. And here's a couple questions that I also have, right? If this was a minor error, if this was something that the judge talked about orally or there was a correction, Trump has already made the argument, right, in the JGG case, the Boasberg case that we've talked about here, that the written order prevails, right? That's why they didn't turn the planes around, because the planes were in the air when the written order came down. They said, we don't follow oral orders. We follow written orders. They have already done the work on that and briefed those issues. So they follow the written order. The written order picked one country. It was Guatemala. So if that was a correction or something, right, the we haven't seen any evidence of it. We haven't seen a notice of errata, a notice of correction, or a scribble on a document anywhere. And that apparently came from a FOIA request or from the courts, from the Tennessee Star that broke that. And we'd like to see that before we just take their word for it. And it's interesting, if they're going to say it was a mistake or an error, it's interesting how mistakes and errors that benefit illegal gang banging, wife beating MS-13 members, if it benefits them, you just ignore it. The document in the conclusion says Guatemala. He referenced Guatemala multiple times. You're just going to substitute El Salvador because it supports your client. But when it's an administrative error on behalf of the American people, even though it wasn't, you're going to scream foul and due process and all the things, and you have to give the benefit of the doubt to the illegal. It's very strange. So, other questions. If the immigration judge's order, David Jones's order, is being violated, why hasn't he issued an order to show cause? If the judge who wrote that order, who said, don't send him to El Salvador, meant El Salvador, where is he? Why are we not seeing this judge scream from the rooftops? Why are they Maryland judges and DC judges? Where is he? Where has he been? Why hasn't the record been supplemented? And if they actually have it, if the gangbang lawyers actually have the documents, why don't they release it? Okay, so I've added some other questions here, shown where the errors are. The judge is not opposed to correcting mistakes on his order. He already did that there. And as it stands, we have not seen an official order that says El Salvador anywhere. And until we do, we're not giving them the benefit of the doubt. We're not giving them an inch on this issue. They should show us the order before this charade and this hoax continues 1 minute longer. Hopefully the DOJ is on that. But we also know more about Kilmar. And Kilmar apparently was driving that car when he got stopped in Tennessee on behalf of another illegal alien who pleaded guilty to human smuggling charges. Oh, you're kidding. That's a weird coincidence. It's just another strange coincidence, like the tattoos that the wife covers up, like the 2 orders of protections that she got against him for saying that he beat and ripped her clothes off and gave her black eyes. Weird, strange. And remember, they called the FBI on this. The FBI said, let him go. No. Are they white supremacists? Oh, no, they're not. Okay, that's okay. Oh, they're just MS-13? Perfect, they can come in. Kilmar, the deported El Salvadorian, was stopped by police in an SUV owned by a man who himself was deported after pleading guilty to smuggling illegal aliens, according to court documents that Just the News got. New details follow other reporting saying the Biden administration had this dude tagged as a suspect alien who is possibly involved in human trafficking after a traffic stop in Tennessee. The Trump administration says that Abrego is a member of MS-13. Family and others deny the evidence, but it's a growing body of evidence saying, yeah, there's a lot more to this dude. When Abrego was stopped in 2022 by the Tennessee State Trooper, Homeland created a record of the encounter. The El Salvadorian was driving a black 2001 Chevrolet Suburban and said that was transporting his passengers to Maryland from Texas for construction work. But the trooper found no luggage in the SUV at all. Yeah, not real Texas barbecue, I guess. Homeland Security documents identified the owner of the vehicle as Jose Ramon Hernandez Reyes. Abrego told the state trooper the owner was his boss. Yeah, probably true. Like, no. Yeah, it's my boss. It's his car. However, that SUV was flagged separately by Homeland and the field office as belonging to a target they suspected of human trafficking. This case gets stranger and stranger, man. So they already had the vehicle. So they called the FBI and like, oh yeah, we know the vehicle. Yeah, that guy was definitely a human smuggler. And they just let them all go. Vehicle is used by HSI Baltimore to target human smuggling. The vehicle makes trips to southern border to pick up non-citizens, the record reads. They had the vehicle tagged. The memo says Baltimore HSI case agent should be notified if the vehicle is encountered. So they call Baltimore, Homeland Security, notify us if you catch this vehicle. What the heck? Jose Ramon, who Abrego claimed he was working for, had previously been convicted of smuggling illegal aliens. He got busted. They just, the lieutenant comes up. In 2022, Hernandez, himself an illegal alien, pleaded guilty to 18 months in prison for smuggling fellow illegal aliens after he was stopped by law enforcement in Mississippi. In Mississippi, they did something. El Salvador and Honduras. He was trafficking people through. Homeland Security records indicate that his deport order was reinstated March 21. as his 18-month sentence was nearing an end. Another official confirmed to Just the News that the Hernandez Reyes, the other trafficker mentioned in both cases, refer to the same individual. Unclear what relationship Kilmar has with the dude, though he told the Tennessee trooper the vehicle was owned by his boss. Lawyers for Abrego didn't respond to requests for that one. No comment on that one. Despite this, the similarities between the traffic stops are striking. Investigators discovered that 9 of the men, 8 including Hernandez Reyes, were illegally present in the United States. Okay, so Boss got popped on a very same type of drive as Kilmar. 3 of the passengers, citizens of Mexico, El Salvador, and Honduras, were determined to have been previously deported from the United States and had illegally returned, the Justice Department said. They were charged with unlawful reentry to the United States. Officers determined that Alvarez and Hernandez were transporting illegal aliens. Abrego stopped doing the same thing, driving erratically and speeding. It's hard to drive straight when you got 8 dudes in the back. By a state trooper, was found to be driving an SUV full of people. Expired driver's license, no luggage. FBI says, they're good, let them go. Hernandez in August pleaded guilty to smuggling illegal aliens, 18 months, unlike their other case. And 3 weeks later, Homeland updated its records to urge all personnel. Wait a minute here. Unlike the Hernandez case, the trooper in the case did not arrest Abrego, but Homeland picked up on the traffic stop through its computer-aided dispatch. Agents reviewed the target and determined Abrego was a suspect alien and referred his matter for review to passport control, the records show. 3 weeks later, in 2022, December, Homeland updated its records to urge all personnel who encountered Abrego Garcia in the future to escort to secondary, a term referring to the investigation used when someone suspected of wrongdoing is encountered at a port of entry or by Border Patrol. Media has called this dude the Maryland Man. He was previously arrested outside the Maryland suburbs, hanging out with other gangbangers, according to police records. They show that the Prince George County gang unit said he was MS-13. We covered that here. So the story just gets worse and worse. And his boss was a human smuggler, popped for human smuggling. They knew the vehicle. The vehicle's traveling back and forth. FBI gets wind of it. They just let it go because that's what they love. Now, the Tennessee Star has been digging on this. And so shout out, if I forgot to say it, to Tom Pappert on this. Shout out to Tom Pappert, who did the reporting on this. Shout out to Michael Patrick Leahy on this. And shout out to Shipwrecked Crew, who was sending me some DMs and mixing it up back and forth on this topic. We appreciate the input from Shipwrecked Crew and the back and forth and educating us all on the various takes that are out there on what's happening here. But what we all, I think, can agree on is we want to see more records. We'd like to see what the forms say. The I-589 and the other forms should be made available. If it is a clear withholding of removal to El Salvador, we want to see the documents. Tom Pappert and Tennessee Star are trying to get the records, and the state agency in Tennessee is slow walking the records for that traffic stop. They don't want you to see what happened there. The Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security is slow walking 2 open records requests, which seek documents. They're playing dumb, like it's like Fannyland or something in Fulton County. The department oversees state law enforcement agencies, and the Tennessee Star filed a request on April 17th. This is kind of funny. They're like, what did you filed something? Oh, no, I didn't. Oh, no. The request especially sought copies of dispatch reports, citations, field notes, as well as the still images that they were instructed to capture, which shows the driver and the passengers, right? A lot more evidence going to come out on this. It also sought video from the dashboard and the body-worn cameras at the scene. Now, Leahy and the Tennessee Star filed a second request on April 18th. After a spokesman confirmed key details in the Tennessee, which specifically sought copies of the CAD records and the reports and the dispatch reports, which may include new details about him, his 8 passengers, and the federal agencies that were all involved in the stop. Now, they told the Star that the Biden-era FBI had jurisdiction over the investigation and that the officers released Abrego and his associates at the request of the FBI, despite the alleged gang member being suspected of human trafficking during the stop. It also has been reported that Homeland communicated with THP before Abrego was released. They all had eyes on this dude, and they let it happen. While the Tennessee Public Records Act mandates that agencies respond to requests within 7 business days, it specifically requires a proper response. After the Star contacted them, the lawyer called Casey of the legal division on Monday. They called. This reporting is great. So I called for a request. I said, hey, Casey Goggin, you're a lawyer? And you're familiar with TCA 107-503-A2B, aren't you? Goggin said, what? The hell are you talking about? Casey Goggin seemed to indicate she's not aware of either public records request at all. What the hell are you talking about? Oh, well, we sent him over. Can you please answer us? Instead, for the second time, the April 16th press inquiry sent by the Star was conflated with a public record request, despite the original inquiry only seeking confirmation of the stop. Now, potentially indicating that Goggin was unaware of either open record request, the lawyer says, so please let me know, are you making a press inquiry or a record request? If it's the latter, you've received the instructions on how to proceed forward. He's like, for the love of God, Casey, for the 5th time, it's a press inquiry. The Star then provided Goggin with an open records divisions with 2 copies of the 2 requests. We sent these before twice, morons, as well as the dates they were sent, prompting the attorney to reveal she had not begun to gather some of the material sought under the law. Goggin replied on Monday that the request, their request will be handled as efficiently and economically as is reasonably possible. What a lawyer response. We're going to handle these as efficiently and economically as is reasonably possible. It's like, oh gosh. I can tell you, she wrote, however, that Mr. Leahy's request for video footage cannot be produced by end of hours, business hours today. The attorney then stated that the video requested by the Tennessee Star will likely take longer for the agency to compile and says you have to pay a fee. Goggin said, I have been tending to other pressing matters and requests received prior to yours. I have not had a moment to evaluate that cost estimate yet. I love how he's publishing all the documents, all the emails. You better get on it, lady, because you're getting reported on right now. Now, the responses provided by Goggin were sent days after we cited to the Star an explanation about why he was stopped. And he's admitting that he's in the country illegally. The withholding of removal order was so-called supposedly for El Salvador, but nobody's shown us the documents on that. And it just continues to get worse. So the cover-up continues. Now, meanwhile, the Democrats are responding to a lot of this, and several of them have made this their cause du jour of the day. And Babylon Bee is reporting that they've decided to add in some letters to their new campaign montages. It's now LGBTQ MS-13, in addition to the DMS-13, the DMS-13 gang. So the LGBTQ MS-13 gang is what the Babylon Bees reported. They got added to the LGBTQ acronym. We talked about this morning on the members only stream. There was that one lawsuit of the trans de Aragua. Okay, he was not MS-13 or she or they or whomever, but a trans de Aragua was coming across. That's why the ACLU is representing them so aggressively. So that's what the Babylon Bee is reporting. Now, meanwhile, Caroline Leavitt was out today talking about, yesterday rather, about what we're going to do with all of the illegals in the country. Here was Caroline.
Roughly how many illegal immigrants and aliens do we have in our country, and how many does the administration plan on deporting?
Sure. Well, you'd have to ask the Department of Homeland Security for a specific number, but we suspect it's definitely in the millions, perhaps upwards of 20 million people that were allowed into the country illegally by the previous administration. And the president and his team are focused on deporting as many as we possibly can. And they are moving as quickly as possible. The president's team has made it clear we need more funding from Congress to do more. We need more ICE agents out on the ground doing this very important work. And we also need rogue district court judges to stop acting as judicial activists, trying to block the administration from deporting illegal criminals from our nation's interior. The American public elected the president to do this, and he's following through with that promise.
Nice from Caroline Leavitt. And this morning, we also got an update from Tom Homan, who made his way out to explain more on the Kilmar case. And here is what Tom Homan had to say when he made his way to the podium.
A couple of questions. I got other interviews lined up, folks.
Mr. Homan, Tom Dempsey with News Nation. Can you give us an update on the crackdown in New York City of Trend Day Aragua members?
That's a classic example how collaboration between ICE and and state and local law enforcement.
Let's fast
It's
forward.
about open borders. It's about sanctuary cities. Sanctuary cities are for criminals, and I salute Mayor Adams for writing that executive order to get us into Rikers Island. I think we'll win that case. I hope the judge who's going to hear that case saw the press conference yesterday and see the results of collaboration. Cops should be working with the cop. I never asked New York City NYPD to be an immigration officer. I asked them to help us be cops working with cops to remove public safety threats and national security threats and terrorists from the streets of New York and from Rikers Island when they're done with their sentences. That's exactly what we proved yesterday.
Mr. Holman, on the Franco Garcia case, what is your response to the judge accusing the administration of bad faith and willful non-compliance?
Bad faith. We removed an MS-13 gang member, public safety threat, wife beater, designated terrorist from the United States. He's home. He's a citizen of El Salvador, a native of El Salvador, who had due process, despite what you're hearing, been ordered removed by 2 separate immigration judges. The best that could happen for him, if he actually gave back to the United States, he would be detained and removed again because he has an order of deportation. And what people don't talk about, the withholding order they keep saying was the mistake or oversight, was issued years ago under different circumstances. The gang he was afraid would attack him no longer exists. The country of El Salvador is a much safer country because of the actions of President Bukele. I don't think any court can order another nation, a sovereign nation, to take a citizen national from their country in their custody and give them back to the U.S. Again, I'm not an attorney. I'll let DOJ argue this in court. But I think we remove the public safety threat, gang member, designated terrorists from the United States who have been ordered deported twice by a federal judge. I think I got plenty of due process. He got more due process than Lake and Riley got.
The administration, or the Supreme Court rather, says the administration must facilitate his return.
Okay.
Will the administration facilitate his return?
I'm not. I'll leave that with the Department of Justice and the State Department. I think I stand by. We did the right thing for the safety and security of this country. We removed the terrorists. Just like the 2 plane loads that all of a sudden everybody's saying we violated court order. These are 2 plane loads of terrorists that won't international waters. Again, I'm not litigating the case. I'm not an attorney. I'll let DOJ handle it. But again, I think we're keeping President Trump's promise to the American people who voted him into office on the #1 issue, secure the border and remove public safety threats and national security threats. That's what we keep doing. I find it incredible that there's all this push for more due process, more process for these designated terrorists, when in fact no one asked for due process when they crossed the border. No one asked for vetting when they crossed the border. Where was all the media? Where were a lot of you all folks when 10.5 million people came to the border and you're silent? Where were a lot of these folks when they had 600% increase in sex trafficking, women and children?
Nowhere.
Where was everybody when we had 250,000 Americans dying from fentanyl that come to that open border? Where's all the anger then? Where was all the press then? But now they enter the country legally against legal process, and now they demand legal process.
Yep.
It's just ridiculous how this has come full circle. And I think President Trump's doing the right thing. This country's much safer today. I looked at the numbers today. We're about 68,000 illegal aliens arrested in the interior United States, a hell of a lot more than Biden administration ever thought of doing. And a vast majority being criminal alien threats. This country's a lot safer. New York City's a lot safer today because of the operations we did up there. Arresting public safety threats and national security threats. Every time we arrest one of these people, remove them, the country gets that much safer. President Trump secured the border in a matter of 7 weeks. Today, as I'm talking to you, we had the most secure border in the history of this nation. Data proves it. He did in 7 weeks what the Biden administration couldn't or wouldn't do in 4 years. This president is keeping his promise to American people. I'm happy. I walk in here every day working for the greatest president of my lifetime because I spent over 40 years doing immigration enforcement and border security. We've never been where we're at right now. The most secure border in the history of this nation right now. Lives are being saved every day. Migrant lives under Joe Biden. Over 4,000 illegal aliens died making this journey to the United States. How is that humane? That's an historic record. And again, 250,000 Americans died from fentanyl. How is that humane? They want to say our administration is inhumane. We're not giving due process. We're saving lives by the thousands every day. The wall, everybody's screaming and yelling about the wall going up. Every place we built a border barrier, illegal immigration went down. Illegal drug flow went down. But you know what no one talks about? The wall saves lives. Women and children can't get over that wall. So that means they're going to a place where there's not a wall. And what's waiting on them? The men and women at the border. So who's going to deal with those health issues and a humanitarian crisis? Walls save lives. The secure border saves lives. President Trump saving thousands of lives every day by securing that border. And we're going to continue, despite what the district court says. Maybe we can hold, maybe we got to hold off on some of the deportation operations we're doing, but it's not going to stop us from seeking these people out, arresting them, and taking them out the streets of the United States while we wait for the courts to decide, about the Alien Enemies Act, these other things. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. We're going to arrest these public safety threats every single day, 24/7 across this country. That will not stop.
All right. So shout out to Tom Homan for delivering the message that the deportations will continue until the country improves. But we would like a little bit more solid messaging out of the White House. Obviously, this is not Tom Homan's purview, so it's not his fight to make. But from Pam Bondi or bring back Stephen Miller or somebody to come out and explain very clearly the judge's order of withholding to El Salvador, even if you say you want to give them the benefit of the doubt, it's debatable. You can look at it. It says Guatemala in the document. So unless they show us something else, we're not giving them an inch on this one. And they can point that right back to Kilmar's team. And his whole family's down there in Guatemala. So he's in El Salvador, not in Guatemala. Correct the record on that. Or if you don't like that argument, there's a backup argument. Just say that the order of withholding came from an Article 2 immigration judge and was overridden by operation of law under the Alien Enemies Act. It is non-reviewable. And Kilmar, they didn't even file a habeas petition until he was already afueted out of the country. So what are they claiming that gives them a lawful basis to continue this charade? Who the hell knows? But the Supreme Court hopefully comes in and clarifies this at some point. We'll be here continuing to cover until they do. All right, but Tom Homan, as we mentioned, is just warming up. So we heard a couple good numbers from him. Numbers sound a little bit low, but we're looking forward to the pace getting picked up over here, starting with these indictments and arrests. 27 gangbangers now arrested or indicted, but some of them are still at large, and so they are still being sought. But the Immigration and Customs Enforcement X account shared this with us, some of the worst crimes. And this is an interesting one because it is a RICO case, a conspiracy case involving a lot of different people, and it's all being filed in the Southern District of New York. They wrote, 27 members of TdA Aragua were charged with racketeering, narcotics, trafficking, robbery, firearms, and other things. They released a whole press report on this. And what you'll notice is there's a lot happening here. So the Pam Bondi DOJ, this one is interesting because it's coming out of the Southern District of New York, which has been a pretty problematic jurisdiction. Some might argue they wanted the illegal problem there, calling themselves a sanctuary city for however long until Mayor Adams got indicted when he started to speak out against it. But now we've got 27 people charged, but some are still at large. Here's the details. Says acting U.S. Attorney Kristi Noem and all the people have now brought an indictment. 27 alleged members, former members of TdA Aragua for all sorts of the most heinous crimes. Pam Bondi said something. Bunch of New York people have come out and said other things. But let's just take a look at the documents and the indictments that have been released. This one came out against these 6 people: Jarwin, Samuel, Efferson, Brian, Sandro, and Armando. 6, if I can count right, all being charged in a new indictment. You can see several counts here, and this one is about the TdA Aragua enterprise. So we got some nicknames here. Biblia is joined up here. Bronx, Queens, internationally, Venezuela and Peru. They do all sorts of the heinous things: trafficking of people, assault, elimination of human life, smuggling people, drugs, and more. TdA Aragua is a criminal enterprise, and all these people were associates of the enterprise. Now, the purpose of this enterprise is to commit crimes, the elimination, robbery, all the things. And they are actually part of a splinter organization called the Anti-Tren. It's like Antifa kind of thing. Anti-Tren. All right. So they're enriching members of the group through all these things, they're smuggling stuff into Peru and the United States, controlled substances, including 2C. Uh-oh, 2C. See that word right there? That's not a good sounding word, but it contains ketamine in there and other controlled substances. So they promote the activities and interstate commerce, means and methods. They have young women who they refer to as multadas, whom they transport from Venezuela into Peru and then in the United States in exchange for debts that the multadas would pay back to the gang for engaging in this work. Horrific. Members of Tren enforce compliance among the multadas by threatening to eliminate them, assaulting them, actually eliminating them, tracking down them, kidnapping them, and more. But it feels like the Democrats kind of want more of this in here. Says they also say that there's a substance called 2C, contains ketamine, meth, and marijuana. Ketamine, meth, and marijuana. Oof. Says the racketeering conspiracy is as follows. They all agreed and conspired and worked together to impact their criminal activity on the United States. Robbery, extortion, elimination of life, multiple acts, multiple offenses, trafficking in drugs, all part of the conspiracy. So you get the gist of it. Drug trafficking conspiracy is here. All these individuals charged under this count. And this is not that juicy of an indictment. You know, you've seen other indictments that we've read here, like from the Jack Smith indictment, where they put pictures in there and all the juicy bits, right? A speaking indictment where they're trying to make their case rather than just listing what the crimes are and the elements of the offense, which is what we've got here, which is the proper way to do it. Carjacking. La Fama is this dude's name. And F.A. Treball. They're carjacking people all over the place. They have done this, part of the conspiracy, they say multiple times, and there were overt acts of this, where they brandished pointed guns at an employees of a car dealership and then took possession of the car. That happened sometime in 2024. Another carjacking count. Count 5, robbery. Count 6, firearms, possession and use. Hobbs Act, extortion. We've got other criminal firearms possessions and a lot. Okay, so this just goes on and on. Don't need to read them all, but you can see 27 of them got indicted. There was a companion indictment that came down, also signed by Podesky, explaining that there are more charges. So a superseding indictment. So the list is now expanded. All these people are getting charged. And this is curious because the question is, how is this going to impact the other Alien Enemies Act and the proclamations that have already been issued? Are these going to be used as evidence, right, that they're committing terroristic conspiracy acts in the country? Or by contrast, maybe they'll turn around and say, well, you didn't charge them with anything terror related, and so you can't call them terrorists under the Alien Enemies Act proclamation, which again, I'm not sure that you need to do specifically. But the terrorism case law is broad because we've been living in the war on terror since 9/11. So both of those indictments dropped, and there are still people apparently who are on the loose. So the New York Post was reporting about this. I thought I saw a twin set of indictments came out. Tren de Aragua is a big gang. They had a whole press conference on this. Most of them are in custody. 3 arrested in New York as recently as Monday, but some are still at large. 4 suspects still at large. 33 guns were seized. 1 engraved with a "you're effed," which is very similar to the Philip Brailsford case in Arizona. The Racketeer Act was charging indictments against all these people. Here's one person. Jarwin Valdero was arrested. The gang members were listed, all from the Bronx and various areas in New York, and they had a full press conference. Look at those guns, baby. Some nice stuff on there. All right, cool. So here is what they said at the press briefing. We got this one.
And many more steps to come.
Tom Homan was out, but we'll fast forward. We'll listen to a little bit of Mayor Eric Adams and see what he said about this.
Administration, I want to be clear on my mission. My mission is to rid every one of these dangerous gangs from our city. I'm unapologetic about it. That mission was pre-election. It's the same post-election. And every law enforcement agency on the city, state, and federal level is part of that partnership. And when you start to attack law enforcement agencies for doing their jobs, you're insulting the men and women who have placed their lives on the front line to address the issue. The question that we must answer, Whose side are you on?
Yeah,
Are
Democrats.
you on the side of those who are carrying these illegal guns, wreaking havoc, sex trafficking,
Senator Van Hollen.
harming innocent people, regardless of their documentation? Or are you on the side of hardworking New Yorkers and Americans?
Which
I'm
one?
clear on which side I'm on.
Yeah.
I'm on the side of those who are protected as a cop, state senator, borough president, and now the mayor of the city of New York. That's the side I'm on, and I'm clear on it. And I'm not apologizing for going after those who carry these illegal guns, wreaking havoc on communities. And so those who want to romanticize these characters and make it seem like they are here just to be part of the American dream is not doing armed robberies. The American dream is not discharging guns. The American dream is not shooting at police officers. The American dream is not going into homeless shelters and taking the documentations from innocent people and forcing them into sex trafficking. That's not the American dream. And we're not going to be a safe harbor for criminals. That's who this group is. And hats off to the entire team. Hats off to Homeland Security.
Dang. So Mayor Adams, man, that is a whole different tune than we used to hear from him, isn't it? Very strange. And I don't know, maybe he'll rise to the Republican Party and join in on making America great again. Maybe we'll see him with a MAGA hat soon enough. But that's exactly right. And this question should be asked of the Democrats. Whose side are they on? Why do they continue to fight and support the gangbanging, wife-beating terrorists in our country? Why don't they want to help America and our law enforcement get these people out of our country without trying to shackle our own people from improving our own lives? Hopefully they'll answer that question, but we're not going to hold our breath. All right, so we got one more update on the day, my friends, and then we'll hear from you. This was a shocking story that hopefully has a good outcome here. Sounds like it might. California made the shocking decision to release this dude, seen here on the left, who's responsible for the death of these two people on the right. Sick story and a tragedy and crime to the max. But what's going on in California? And is this dude going to walk free? Turns out the DOJ, the feds, have said, we're not going to let the state get away with this. And they're going to turn around and indict him. We'll share what they've said about this. But the story was broken by Bill Malugin. He's over with Fox News. He says, the families of two teens killed by an illegal alien who crashed into them while drunk, high, and speeding at 100 miles per hour in Orange County, California in 2021 have been told by the state of California that their killer will be released from prison early in July. You imagine that? Mom, dad, family, dude who killed your kids and you're is going to be out soon. Just 3.5 years into a 10-year sentence for killing the teens who both burned alive, just in case you missed that. Someone should tell Senator Van Hollen, maybe he can go have some mojitos with this dude. Oscar Eduardo Ortego and Guiano, a twice deported Mexican illegal alien, had a lengthy rap sheet prior to killing 19-year-olds Anya Varfolomev and Nikolai Osakin in a DUI crash on the 405 freeway in Seal Beach in November 2021, probably going out for a nice date and dinner. Both were U.S. citizens, and they were dating. Nice date. Ortega and Giuliano had several felony convictions already in our country, had already gone to state prison, had multiple convictions for driving without a license, and was still on the streets in California having a grand old time when he crashed into the teen's vehicle. In the spring of 2022, Ortega was convicted in Orange County of 2 counts of gross vehicular manslaughter while intoxicated for the killing of the teens, which is just, a judge sentenced him to serve 10 years in prison for each count, but ran them concurrently. Okay, so not 10 plus 10, that would be consecutive, concurrent running them together. He would serve both 10 years sentences at the same time, which is, that's a pretty light sentence for killing 2 19-year-olds. You get 10 years from that. You're out in 10 years. You just took 2 lives away. You took, 150 years away. So you get 10. The victims' families felt like that was already a weak sentence, but they tell me they were notified by the California Department of Corrections on Easter Sunday. Okay. And I got to tell you, I didn't catch that. My original thought on this whole thing is this is humiliation, right? It's a humiliation ritual. This is what they want to do. They want to say there's no justice. These criminals can break into your country, commit all the crimes in the world, kill your kids, and we're going to let them out. So just suck it up, right? And it's a humiliation ritual. For them to do it on Easter Sunday is that much worse. That's what it is. To be ultra clear, there's the evil forces at play to do that to a family on Easter Sunday. Only a little more than 3 years into his sentence, leaving the victim's family shocked and outraged given the seriousness of the crime and the prior criminal history. And by the way, right, if you've got prior felonies, it generally escalates you into another category of offense. So you'll hear the terms like in Arizona, it's category 1, category 3. And when it comes to felonies, it's like a big chart, right? So you got, class 1 through 6 felonies, for example. 1's the most serious for murder, 6 is the least before it drops into a misdemeanor. And then you have categories of offenders. So let's say you got charged with a class 3 and it's your first offense, you're in the first column. You go, whoop, right there. But what if you've got prior felonies? Oh, you're a repeat offender. Oh, you got 2 priors. Oh, you're category 3. So now that same class 3 moves over 2 columns in the chart and you get much worse penalties. Like if you're a repeat felon, totally a huge problem. So the fact that this guy had a repeat felony conviction, went to prison already, killed 2 people and got 10 years is humiliation in and of itself, which is why if you're in California, it's probably a good idea to think about what to do next. But in this situation, the judge then authorizes the early release. So the death of 2 teens is cut to 3.5 years. The victim's family felt it was horrific. Only little more than 3 years, leaving the family shocked and outraged. They provided us with the CDCR document showing they're going to release this dude on the 19th. Now, the California Department of Corrections wouldn't confirm the release date, saying, we cannot provide information on incarcerated persons' release dates or locations in advance of their relief. Well, we just want to know who called the grieving family on Easter Sunday and said they're going to release their family's killer. They added that incarcerated persons may earn credits for participation in rehabilitative programming, which may move the parole eligible dates to an earlier date. So he may get out earlier, might not even be 3.5. ICE confirms to Fox News they have placed a detainer on Ann Giuliano with the California Department of Corrections, and they intend to take him into custody upon release. But maybe California won't give it to him. California hopes, or the ICE hopes that California will honor the detainer request and transfer him to their custody, which they often do, but maybe not. Maybe they'll just let him go. But the families fear, even if he is deported, he's just going to re-enter the U.S. as a gotaway, as he's done twice before. Sick to think about. Kills these 2 beautiful young people and then gets out after 3.5 years running free while the family mourns for the rest of their lives. And he can just run away, run free. That's their version of justice in America, which is humiliating the people who live there. So obviously it's outrageous. The attorney in California, U.S. Attorney S.A. Lee, says, my office has filed felony immigration charges against this defendant. He faces up to 20 years in federal prison if he's convicted under 8 U.S. Code 1326. If the state of California will not seek the full measure of justice against this person, the Department of Justice will. And that's great news. Todd Blanche also said, okay, we got 2 American teenagers were killed in a horrific crash by a twice deported illegal alien. It's like crash is like an accident. Like he murdered them. If you're driving around drunk going 100, that's like murder. Okay. It's so reckless. It's not like, oops, it's an accident. You had too many to drink and your tire blew out and you accidentally killed somebody. You're driving like a reckless lunatic. You know, there are no consequences. You might as well be shooting a gun at somebody's face if you're driving around smashed at 100 miles an hour. And I say that as a DUI attorney, right? California is releasing him early, just 3.5 years into a 10-year sentence. This is a disgrace. Under POTUS and Pam Bondi, we believe justice means consequences and victims always come first. Coming out from Todd Blanche. So good update there. And even Caroline Levitt was explaining, clipped over via Gunther Eagleman for us, explaining Caroline is saying we are going to continue our prosecutions of the criminals in America.
Well, first of all, listening to the heartache from those two parents is truly heartbreaking, and our hearts are with them. And not only are we praying for them, but this administration is taking action. The Department of Homeland Security and ICE have already said that a detainer has been put on this individual if he is to be released, and he will immediately be transferred into ICE custody, we hope, if the state of California complies. And if not, the Department of Justice will be seeking a conviction against this man, where he will spend time in federal prison for taking the lives of those two young Americans. So these results speak for themselves. President Trump is not going to tolerate illegal immigrant crime. And this individual case represents everything that is wrong with our immigration system. This individual was twice deported, but was allowed back into our country by the previous administration, took the lives of two young Americans, and is now barely facing any consequences. We will not tolerate it. We will not stand for that, and we will continue to enforce our nation's immigration laws and ensure that illegal immigrants who not only break our nation's immigration laws, but then further commit heinous acts of violence against law-abiding American citizens in our country are held to the fullest extent of the law.
All right, so that's Caroline Levitt explaining what is happening, and the prosecutions will continue because these judges, for some reason, think it's appropriate to allow murdering illegal aliens out after 3.5 years so that they can run free. We'll see if they hand that dude off to ICE, but it's California, so wouldn't expect it. But all right, my friends, now it has been a beautiful stream. If you're just joining us, we went through the entire latest update on the Kilmar hoax, and we're watching how the judge was not clear in the country for withholding, and how the judge actually in his order referenced Guatemala. Now, there's going to be a bunch of people out there saying, well, that's a typo, that's a mistake, that's something that was corrected later. Show us that. Just show us that. Show us where the judge corrected it. The judge can correct other things. He corrected this little date up here. So show us where the correction is, where the addendum is. We don't see it anywhere, and no one has shown it up to this moment. So they want us to all just sit here and believe that we should just substitute El Salvador for Guatemala because he references El Salvador elsewhere in here. He also references Guatemala and the families living in Guatemala, and the connection was all about connection to Mama. The whole family was certified as a protected class, and Mama is in Guatemala. Mama is not in El Salvador. So if he's a member of that protected group, Guatemala was the right thing to put in here legally. It legally flows. So everyone else who's saying, well, it's a typo or something, the burden is on them. This is the judge. The judge wrote this down right here in the order. So unless they show us something differently, this is the ruling order until we see differently. So, of course, we talked about that, and I can't wait to see where that goes. Hopefully the administration adopts that. Also, it's not just me saying that. It's this person over here, Andrew R. Arthur, and other people. I saw Tim Pool reposted our X post today. So thank you, Tim, for doing that. And apparently Tim also caught this a while ago. Tim Pool said that they talked about this on Timcast IRL like 3 weeks ago. So check out their show. Apparently we just talk about what they talked about 3 weeks earlier. So anyways, so shout out to Tim Pool on that one, but there's a lot on this. I think that the poison pill angle is valid, and I hope that the DOJ starts to get their act together on this case. With all due respect to Drew Ensign, I know he's working his butt off, but they've got hundreds of lawsuits that they're fighting against, and this case is a disaster. So hopefully we get some attention on that one. We went through a bunch of reaction to that. Also saw that there were some sealed filings, so maybe we'll get some more updates as the week unfolds. We also then talked about the TdA Aragua, 27 members and associates who were also charged today, or yesterday rather. There was a little bit of a press conference. Mayor Adams is starting to sound like MAGA Adams, and welcome aboard. Nice to have you. We then talked about what happened in California with this illegal who's being released early, and the DOJ is saying that they're going to prosecute him regardless for immigration crimes. And so now, my friends, it's time to hear from you, and it has been a beautiful stream. And we're very glad that you're here and joining us. Thank you for subscribing if you haven't already done that. And thanks for becoming a member and joining us on our members only streams, which come on 6 days a week, including on Saturdays. We'd love to have you join us. Hey, what's going on? We got some donos coming in and some new membos coming in. Thank you, Donut, for clipping for us. I think I saw a little John action. K-Bean action was from this morning. Hey, Don is here. We were talking about trades this morning on the members only stream. Don, sorry I missed this morning. Said the average age of a master plumber is 60. Yeah, we were talking about the student loans and the collections and all of that. And the question, of course, is if they're going to give, blue-haired freakazoids like 300 grand to go study transgender international ideology and, universal acceptance or whatever, why are we not giving loans to students who are going to learn a trade? Maybe we are plumbing or electrician, electrical work or construction, entrepreneurship, all sorts of things. Yeah. What's up, Don? Great question. Hey, happy Wednesday. Look at this nice kitty. Hey, what's going on? Rub some dirt on it. Rub some dirt on it is also nicknamed Whirlpool for the Whirlpool Galaxy because he's a real astrophotographer, like the real deal. He shared some stuff with us on Locals. It's wild. He says, hey, Blood Moon, imagine what you'd be showing us today if, while watching the skies last night, you were running your C-Star telescope in wide field mode. Like this, Blood Moon. So Blood Moon yesterday on the after party on the members only stream. So I got this little telescope called the C-Star S50. It's like a smart telescope, super simple. Just plug it in, has an app and everything. It's pretty cool. That's why I took that Blood Moon photo, which is why my new nickname is now Blood Moon. Thank you for your attention to this matter. However, he sent in a comment yesterday that was savage, man. He said, hey, Rob, wondering if you're ever going to take your C-Star Galaxy telescope off of the treadmill that you never use, where you hang your jujitsu gi that you also never use, and actually point it at the sky and do something useful for once in your life. I know. It was brutal. So I had to, find a therapist last night, looking on, someone help me process this violent attack. But it's a beautiful picture. Whirlpool, thanks for sharing it with us, man. Look at that. Oh, I literally, though, I did see a shooting star last night. I'm not joking. We were floating around in the spa last night, and I thought, and I made a wish. Not for world peace either. Hey, more here. What's up? More here, bringing in 10 membos. What's up? More here. Swamp Sega City. What's up? Honk Honk is here. Atlas Shrugged is joining us. Great to see you. Who is John Galt? No Set Direction. What's up, K Karen? What's up, Waffle Army? Infinity Project is here. We got Front to Enemy and C. Patton McGinley, along with Robin Rickman, all gifted membos, courtesy of More Here, bringing in More Here. Thanks for doing that. What's going on? Look at this cat. Greer is here. What's up, Harold Greer? Thank you, Harold, for bringing in 5 new membos as well. We got Pamela Hernandez is here. What's up, Ben Brosiu, Robin Schaefer, KB, and Keith Schonk, all gifted membos, courtesy of Harold Greer and that handsome cat. Thank you, Harold. What's going on, Bezzy? Hey, Rob, as a lawyer, is this not sloppy on the DOJ's part? I mean, if anybody had access to the entire spectrum of this case, it would be them. Why so many twists and turns? Honestly, I feel like it was sloppy of me. And we're just a live streamer. We're just live streaming here. And we read the documents at like 3x speed while we're looking at multiple screens, right? So it's like we got a lot to process. And those are all my excuses as to why we missed that. But we still shouldn't have missed that. It should have been obvious from the beginning. And I don't know. I mean, the obvious explanation as to why the DOJ is not hitting this harder is because they have some documents that show opposite of what I'm saying here. But we haven't seen them. And if the Kilmar team has it, why haven't they published those? And the whole thing was poisoned absolutely by Ruvani, who was fired. So it was sloppy. Yeah, it was very sloppy. I think I'm pretty upset about this case in terms of performance from the DOJ. Just to be clear, like that Ruvani stuff should have been repudiated immediately. They should have filed that attorney was fired and repudiated, and that's not the case. And they should have doubled down on the original argument, which was the alien, which is valid. And even Stephen Miller came out and made that argument. He started talking about it, but it's like Stephen Miller's arguments aren't making its way over to the DOJ. Like, what the hell is that? Excuse me. Is anybody listening to Stephen Miller over there? He also talked about Alien Enemies Act overriding, and those talking points should also go to Tom Homan. and they should all be in sync on this stuff. And again, even if it turns out that there are other documents, and I doubt that there are, that show El Salvador specifically. If they existed, we'd have seen them already, just to be clear. If that existed, they would have given it to us. I don't think it does. I think he meant Guatemala. But they poisoned it, and the judges accepted it. They filed in Maryland, totally unrelated to this case. Yeah. So anyways, thank you, BZ. What's going on? John McGarvey. Hey, have you noticed that when opening YouTube, it automatically starts playing shorts now? I have noticed that. Yeah, this seems to be very predatory practice, counter long form content. Yeah, they're pushing people to the shorts. We're publishing our shorts because we got to play the game now. You got to be on there. It's like mandatory. If you want to grow your channel, I think you got to start publishing the short stuff, even if you don't want to. But yeah, it's the thing. And they're pushing it, man. They're pushing it hard, long form content. But the good news is, okay, if you're out there creating stuff, what we do is we actually just link the shorts back to our main videos. So if you catch a short, you can also link back, watch the full stream. Zombie Plan, what's up? I don't think the Guatemala doc says that. Just above the conclusion, it talks about El Salvador. That's fine. I think he was trying to get withholding from El Salvador and Guatemala, but the judge denied the Guatemala holding. Yeah, I don't know how you could read that. I mean, respectfully, Zombie Plan. Yeah, that's right. He did talk about it. Like he mentions it. It's right there. El Salvador, right? Here, the respondent has not shown that it is more likely than not that he would be tortured if he were removed to El Salvador. Okay, so again, so to finish my prior point, let's say this. Let's say that there is another document, okay, that says, oh, the judge says Guatemala and El Salvador, right? I don't think that there is. If there was Guatemala and El Salvador, he could have crossed this out just like he did up above and wrote El Salvador or amended this down here. He didn't do it. And just based on this, you could make the argument that this is the holding. That is the dispositive conclusion here. That's what governs the document. So even Ruvani shouldn't have made the admission that it was an administrative error. That was a negligent argument to make for a DOJ attorney. He should have said, even if he doesn't believe it fully, or there's other evidence, or even if it's questionable, he could have just said, the judge wrote Guatemala, so I'm following Guatemala. That's why we removed him to El Salvador. Like, you could have made that argument. Even if this was an error, right? You capitalize on the error. You don't come out. No lawyer comes out and says, we admit to making a mistake, because that's not how the law works, unless it's an obvious mistake and you have to fall on the sword. But that almost never happens. You always come out and say, no, there was a clear alternative explanation for this. The judge wrote Guatemala in the concluding paragraph in his order, and he talked about Guatemala, talked about them moving. Mama is in Guatemala, and Mama is the protected class of which Kilmar belongs. And if Mama's in Guatemala, then he's got to go to Guatemala, right? Because that's the class. He can't go to El Salvador if Mom's in Guatemala. But I appreciate the thought on it. How could he deny Guatemala if he wrote that in the concluding paragraph? Hey, Doan says, better to ask forgiveness than permission, from MA5. Doan says, hey, happy Papusa Wednesday. It's Papusa Tuesday on Wednesday. We had a lot of papusas this week. Spudman says, the third AG reference to Guatemala. Respondents' two sisters and parents are in Guatemala, right? And the judge went through a whole section of analysis that explains that Kilmar is not part of MS-13 gangbangers. He's not part of the bucket. He's not part of the friends and family of Jennifer Vasquez, U.S. citizen bucket. He's part of the family bucket. He wrote the whole paragraph in there. The family bucket is in Guatemala. Abacus Finch says, did you hear about the New Mexico judge who resigned when a bunch of gangbangers were arrested on his property? Yeah, I think somebody was like in his casita. What were they doing in there? Making pupusas with each other? Ugh, gross. Abacus Flinch, thanks for that comment. We did see that. Maybe we'll do a segment on that one. Hey, Fred Pedamonte says, he's being threatened by a rival gang. Hello. Yeah, because he's in another gang. Alice Elizabeth says, you said that there were no Democrats here. Huh. I was a Democrat my whole life, a Bernie Democrat. Yeah, I was, right? That's the thing. Well, we're glad to have you, Alice Elizabeth. We're all, I think the country's going through they call it a political realignment. And I think people are kind of shedding the old labels in a way. The Democratic Party used to not be as nuts. Like, I will admit that. Like when Dennis Kucinich was out there, he was like fighting for free speech and against the Patriot Act and stuff like that, right? Like I remember that, and I was a younger man, so I was just like a Republican because like that was the team that I was on. I was like, Dennis Kucinich is a crazy liberal. But you look back, you're like, oh, that's actually a lot of that was accurate. Free speech is important, and the Patriot Act is ridiculous, and so there's some of that. But then the whole party just shifted away from that. I think he was like super anti-war, wasn't he? Which you can get on board with. But then they shifted. Now they're pro-war, pro-censorship, pro-illegal invasion. Don't like the American working class at all. Like the whole party's gone nuts. Anyways, Doan says Kilmar's knuckle tats don't say papusa on there. No, I don't think so. Maybe that's what they're trying to make it say, but I think it says MS-13, not papusa. What's up? Thank you, Doan. Spudman, hey, for the AG, the cover sheet is a list of checkboxes, and they only selected the last one called Other. Called Other from Spudman. Thank you, Spudman. Hey, Gary Sukimura. Welcome aboard, Gary Sukimura. Great to have you. Welcome aboard. Tree Climber, what's up in the house? Great to have you. Bringing on Tim Robeson. What's up, Tim Robeson? Jeff Iverson. Great to see you, Jeff. We got new membos coming in. Grab the member stream from this morning, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Will Crump says, what about the appeals court or SCOTUS? What do they do about this Judge Zenas outright lying about lack of due process and misrepresenting SCOTUS order from Good Friday? Yeah, that's the problem, right? Is the Supreme Court then came and rubber stamped an erroneous record, and they had no choice. Like this whole case is totally messed up because the judge, remember, Judge Zenas ordered a midnight return of Kilmar or else. So Roberts and them, they had to come in and issue an order on a non-fully briefed case. Ridiculous. Thank you, Will. What's up? V Moran says, hey, welcome aboard. V Moran just became a membo. Great to see you. Wojo says, what did the judge say when Letitia James took her shoes off in court? Odor in the court. That's a great joke, Wojo. Odor in the court. Like order in the court, right? It's Tish. Gaveled out, right? Your case is adjourned. Hey, Mikhail Heim says, I think the mention of Guatemala in the Article 2 document for Garcia is about a Guatemalan gang operating in El Salvador, and the judge is just misunderstanding or something. Well, I don't know what to tell about that. I mean, the judge wrote it down. Like, we have to follow what the judge wrote. So if this was a mistake, the judge should correct it. And again, to my other point, if this judge is so upset about this, where's his order? Why isn't he hauling Trump into court? Why isn't he screaming, I want an order to show cause? How dare you deport this person to El Salvador? Why is Judge Zenas and Judge Boasberg in totally unrelated jurisdictions the ones who are crying about this and not this judge? Like, where's Judge David Jones? They're violating your order, Judge. He's like, no, they're not. I don't know what they're so upset about. I said Guatemala. The dude's in El Salvador. Everything's fine. So I don't know what he's misunderstanding. Hey, what's up? Konoha, Jeremy. Welcome, Konoha. Thanks for becoming a supporter. We'll see you tomorrow on the members only stream. What's up? Doan says Tusi, a.k.a. pink cocaine. Yeah, and a little bit more, it sounds like. A little meth in there. Little marijuana in there. I don't know. Maybe that's what Van Hollen was on. Hey, BJ says, BG, let the snitching begin. Oh, yeah. Like the Kool-Aid guy. Good to see you, BG. Thanks for the dono. Hey, Mikhail says, Mikhail Heim, I'm the left keeps screaming about due process because they want these aliens prosecuted and to serve time for their crimes in the U.S. first. Yeah, they're trying to ignore the entire immigration system and just say you have to charge them with a crime before you can remove them, which means they get all the Article 3 protections, all jury trials, all the things. If you have to charge them with a crime before removing them, then you're not going to remove hardly anybody, right? The percentage of removals will be basically zero, which is what they want. We got this one from Chris Finney. What's up, Chris? Thank you for sending this one in, Chris. Great to have you a supporter. Welcome aboard. We got Doan. says constitutionally regarded Dems want to strip us of our legal firearms, but then insist on cutting illegals and their hot irons loose on society. Poop. True. BG says, when is 8 U.S. Code 1324 charge versus Mayorkas dropping? Which is, thank you, Donut, for clipping this one. Bringing in and harboring certain aliens. Yeah. And we got to ask Pam Bondi on that one. We got a nice list for Pam. Has anybody started a list for her? We should start another one. Put it in a book. What's up, one old guy? Criminals, repeat IAs are charged with 1326, not 1325, always, which is re-entry by removed. Doan says, California leads in the anti-Second Amendment vigilante chaos agenda. Well, they're doing a good job of that there, releasing murdering illegals. Number one deplorable says, corner of his families in Guatemala illegally. Corner of his families in Guatemala illegally. Wait, how do we know Mama is in Guatemala? Well, it was in the reading here. Let's take a look at that sentence. Where was it? Just to confirm it. Yeah. Continue to threaten Mama and the sisters. Turn next to withholding. Where was that? Yeah, the parents are in Guatemala right there. At present, even though the family has now shut down the pupusa business, Barrio 18 continues to harass and threaten the two sisters and parents in Guatemala. That's where Mama is. Additionally, they have targeted a brother-in-law who now lives with the family, also in Guatemala. And so if Mama is in Guatemala, and if you go down here, and the judge does his analysis on a family-based social group, you see that? He's a part of a family-based social group, and he's his mother's son. He's with Cecilia, who ran the pupusa business. So his nuclear family is cognizable. So he has to go back to the group of which he's protected. You can't go back there. That group is protected. You can't go back there. They're in Guatemala. They're in Guatemala. This is why he's protected. If he's not a part of the family social group, then he doesn't get the protection at all. It's not a cognizable group. Family's in Guatemala, so he can't go back to Guatemala. It's like, oh, amazing. BG, hey, nobody filed a Nunc Pro ring, so it ain't no typo or clerical error. Yeah, where's the correction on it? Why didn't they just squiggle that out? Give us a new order that clearly says El Salvador. Man, and I honestly think like these attorneys who filed that saying that there was a withhold, like they better have some documents to back that up, because they submitted that to the Fourth Circuit and Judge Zenas. And from what we've seen, there's nothing in there that says El Salvador concretely. We just went through it. I mean, here is their document that they submitted to the Fifth Circuit, or the Fourth Circuit rather. Fourth Circuit, it's all in here. And it's the same order that we just read. And they've got their affidavits. They've got a bunch of other stuff. So have they even submitted to the courts a clear order of withholding, or withholding of removal to El Salvador? No, all they're doing is they're just adopting the poison pill. They say, we have nothing to say on the merits. We concede he should not have been removed to El Salvador. On what basis? That attorney was fired who made those statements. Fired. Because it's inaccurate, right? It was not accurate. Milo Phone Bill says, the New Mexico judge resigns. TdA and his casita. Are the Supremes going to talk about this case? Well, I don't think it's a real case yet, right? He just resigned. Has he been charged with anything? Or... I don't think so. It's just a very scandalous story because he was making pupusas with gangbangers. I don't know why. Mikael says, oops, I came an hour late. I stand corrected about whether the judge meant Guatemala in the order. I didn't know that's where Mama lives. Yep. Right. Mama's there. And he's part of the Mama group. Sharpie Guy says, hey, everyone, subscribe and help Rob out. Thank you, Sharpie Guy, for doing that. Please, please. One old guy. Clerical error is on Kilmar's appointed attorney. That dude is full of errors. Yeah, BG says, tunk clerical error on my part. Tunk clerical error from BG. Mikael says, send the drunk driving illegal to Fanny's jail. See, yeah, they don't care about due process down there. Judge Wilkerson or Henderson or whatever that was yesterday, they're not complaining about Fannyland where people are getting eaten by bed bugs and dying. Some feds to make sure he isn't let out until Bukele agrees to take him off our hands, from Mikael. He's lawfully there in El Salvador, as far as we can tell. Until we see some evidence otherwise, it's not part of the record. Senorita, what's up, Senorita 978? Thank you for the dono and for being an amazing membo here. What's up, Doan says, is the DOJ letting Zenus and HAX eliminate themselves here? I don't know. I think that the DOJ has been dropping the ball on this case. I think that this could have been rectified. I mean, they got taken advantage of with the prior poison pill Eraz Ruvini attorney, but they should have come in and corrected that record aggressively at the time. More here says, I use a shorts blocker on YouTube. Well, interesting. I didn't know you could do that. On an app? You can do that on an app? Maybe there's a setting you can just turn them off. Hey, it's Tony Hay Muckets. Thank you, Tony Hay, for bringing in new membos. What's up? Lynn Roberts is here. Another user is here. Jarrell Rogers, welcome. Based Shaman in the house. What's up? We got Roxanne Graziano. What's up? Joe Drum. Gina Henry, Semper Fi, Lisa Daniel, and T. Renee gifted membos. And I don't know if that is the Jacob Chansley or not, but shout out to Jacob Chansley and the Base Shaman. And thank you, Tony Hay Muckets, for bringing in new membos in the house. What's going on? This one from Veronica King says, cannot we, the people, not file a class action suit against these treasonous judges and congresspeople for compromising our collective security? Yeah, you can't really, right? There's this concept called the political question doctrine. Like if you're unhappy with your leadership, if you're unhappy with the judges or the people who are in charge, the idea is you got to engage in the political process and then have your congresspeople impeach the judges or pick better judges. But you can't really sue. That's kind of like think of the elections as a giant class action every 4 years that we all get to play in. Mikhail says, a writer on Veronica King's question, is there a citizen's version of an amicus brief, and can you lead the way for us to sign it? Yeah, I think you could. I think you could probably have most of the time they take the form of a group that is advocating on behalf of an interest. So like what would our interest be? Safe and secure borders. So there's a group for that. So then that group that fights for safe and secure borders would then be the leader of the amicus, and then they would have the heft behind them to do it. But I'm not sure we've seen anything like that. And the amicus briefs, like they you want them to come, not to say that like we the people don't have credibility, but you notice when they get them submitted, it's like from 55 law professors or for 120 different former attorneys generals or whatever, right? And it's supposed to be persuasive on the court in that way. It's like these people with gravitas are coming in and filing these briefs. Oh, these constitutional law, Erwin Chemerinsky or whatever, right? But practically, we get to vote. Natalie Ray, what's up, Natalie? Thank you for joining up as a membo. Grab the stream from this morning. We had a good time this morning. Thanks for signing up. Rob White, let's find illegal aliens at all J House. I'm not sure what J House is, but they might be everywhere. All right, this old guy says MS-13 was active in Guatemala too. All right, we're going to try to avoid the nips here. Look at that. MS-13 was active in Guatemala too. Getting arrested there on the streets. No nips on the screen. Nailed it. Pinochet, what's up? Did you see the Bondi in action figure? No. Oh, that's great. Can't wait for Cash Patel and Do Nothing Dan in action figures for the whole set. Oh no. Oh no. The in action figure, all talk, no cuffs. Constitution, sealed indictments. Warning. Warning. Hilarious. Well, Pam, all she has to do is start indicting some folks. And we'll make some new action figure memes. Oh, that's great. All right, Tony Hay Munkets. We've been going pretty hard on Pam. We were pretty hard on Pam this morning, that's for sure. We were. Tony Hay Munkets. Hey, I love you, Rob. You explain things to me. The one thing he told me is that they are wrong, but they are going to do it anyways. Democrats play games just to buy time. Look, if there is an order or a checkbox or any official documentation that says El Salvador, I'll put it on the screen. Please send it to me. If you have it, send it to me. Show me. But the idea that this is just a mistake and everybody understood that it's the opposite of what he wrote in there is ridiculous. We're not going to buy that. No, thanks. Hey, Casey Cat says, if all of that happened in Guatemala when Garcia was a kid, where did he get all of his MS-13 ink? Makes inquiring minds go, Yeah, and there's questions about that, right? Like age of majority and how old was he when he came in here, and what was the gang affiliation? Was he 12? Did they ship him up here when he was like 14, or what happened? Like, how did he get here? His parents were like, "You're going to America because our pupusa business is under attack." And then the whole thing was 4 months. 4 months. Like, okay, you move 15 minutes away and then another 15 minutes away. Like, go to a different place or something. Why is that America's problem? Because you're under attack from some gangbangers. Like, I'm sorry that's happening to you. I don't want that to happen. But if you get to just export your people to another land instead of deal with your own problems at home, then they're never going to get better. And America cannot be the landing pad for all of the other problems of the world. We can't do that. Sorry. It'd be nice if we lived in a fantasy land utopia where that was possible, but it's not. So stop acting like we should be the bin for every problem that the world has. All right. So thank you, KC Cat, for that. So I think it's pretty conclusive. I feel pretty good about our analysis today. Happy with that. So, of course, let's say hello to our friends on X and see who's joining us over there on the day. And then we'll go over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. Hey, what's going on? We got a poem from Poet Master Elliot. Department accounts are decidedly vague, relating how Jack took his oath at The Hague. HR does confess they advise one more try. Part of the file surely failed to comply. In spite of the statute, in spite of the norm, no witness or stamp on his first standard form. That's about Jack Smith from Doc Master, Poet Master, Elliot. What's up? Shared this one. Elliot updating us. Elliot is sharing some documents. This is the Jack Smith oath that we don't know who signed or witnessed. Yep, great stuff there from Doc Master Elliot. What's up? James Pepper says James O'Keefe just exposed the DOD. Shout out to James O'Keefe. Fred Pedamonte says, hi, can I have a Guatemala, an El Salvador, a Venezuela, medium rare, small fries, Coke, no ice. Second window, please. Would you like some fentanyl with that? Oh, no fentanyl for me today, thanks. I've had a little too much this week. Okay, great. Fred Pedamonte. Yeah. Okay, great. Hey, thank you. Thank you for this. So check this out. U.S. Immigration Judge David Jones, appointed by Acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker, who was a former Trump person, right? Matt Whitaker, I think, is back in the Trump administration now, appointed David Jones to begin March 2019, will oversee Baltimore and more. Brigham Young, military, and more. Yeah, where's the judge? If this judge's order is being violated, if he said, don't you dare send this person to El Salvador specifically, where is he? Has he spoken out? Has he issued an order to show cause or anything? Hey, Defender Stargate. Ooh, we got a juicy pupusa. Ooh, this looks delicious. A pupusa is a Salvadorian dish, essentially a thick handmade corn or rice tortilla. Look at that pupusa. Delicious. Well, apparently they kill each other over those things in El Salvador or wherever. Nancy, what's up? Nancy says, Rob, if TdA are made a class by judges, what happens when someone says, I'm not a member of the class? That's the point, right? That's the logical inconsistency. How can the people who are suing, demanding they be certified as a class, certify a class that is intended for gangbangers when they say that we're not gangbangers? It's logically inconsistent. Yeah, Kilmar, TJ King says, his Salvadorian hometown is only 38 miles from Guatemala, so they moved 10 miles and 15 miles, and apparently 38 miles did the trick. So if the judge designates the mom and the pupusa business is the locus of danger, then El Salvador was a logical place to send him. Exactly right, TJ. Exactly. Right. If he's a part of the mama group, and that's what the judge identified him as, and the pupusa business is where all the problems are emanating, and mom's in Guatemala, then the withholding should be for Guatemala. It's the only logical explanation in the order. It was a mistake. What? The whole opinion explains why this was. What's going on? Shout outs to Satellite Boy, Curtis Polk. Great to see you there, Satellite Boy, and some other. I don't know why it's calling those spams. They don't look like spam to me. And Mini Tika, thanks for sharing us over on Rumble. We appreciate that, Mini Tika. Great stuff. Okay, so friends on X, thanks for following us on X. Thanks for hanging out over there. Thanks for sharing our stuff with a friend or family member as we go through these wild times ahead. We are going to wrap it up. We're heading over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Come join us if you want to hang out for our members only after party over there. Otherwise, we want to thank our mods and our meme smiths. K Bean in the house, Donut Mind Me, Carrie B, Playing Hooky, Dog Digger, and Janek in the house, modding the fort down for us. And Elliot, Doc Master, Poet Master, Gigam Gigam, Meme Smith Extraordinaire, and Just Rhonda, purveyor of fine emojis. We appreciate everybody who helps keep this show on track. And thanks for all the feedback. Let's make sure we're not missing any other comments that just came in. We are. What's up? Rob White says the previous J is judge. Remember, the Dem judge resigned. From Rob White. Thank you, Rob White, for that. And Doan sent this one in. Hey, Dem Representative Maxine Dexter says she won't leave El Salvador until Kilmar is released from CCOT. Are you kidding? How delicious is that? She's still down there? She's throwing a little temper tantrum? You know what's probably happening. It's those margaritas, man. She had one of those margaritas. She's like, these are good. What is this? Añejo tequila? That's my favorite. It's real. It's authentic. You know, they grow a lot of the agave down there. So really nice of her to hang down there, probably on a hammock, soaking up the sun, fighting for due process in America. All right. Good luck, Maxine. Hey, Tony. Hey, Rob, I'm talking about years of court hearings against Trump. We all know they were bull. You even said that and proved that, but said they will do it anyway. And we are good people that try to go by the system and we just suffer. Yeah, I think that's right. They try to exploit the justice system for their own gains. They tried to throw Trump off the ballot. They prosecuted him 4 times. They tried to bankrupt him. Then they shot him in the head. Then they tried to get him again. And Tony, hey, man, you were here with us as we were calling it out. So thanks for supporting us through that battle. And it's not over. Like, these people just lost the mantle of power, but they still exist. They're still out there plotting and scheming from the gutters. What's up? Thank you, Tony. Hey, for that one. Really nice of you today. What's up? Knox is here. Hey, it's Happy Papusa Wednesday, all. Those attorneys better have some docket sheet, minute order, or something that states El Salvador on it. I am so glad I am not them right now. Thank you, Knox. Knox is another defense attorney from Texas. I want to see it. They better have something. And the DOJ adopted that original statement. But that original statement from Cerna said El Salvador. And I think he was fed that info from Ruvani. And Ruvani, like, what are they looking at? And if they had it, okay, here's the thing. If they had it, wouldn't they have submitted it to the Fourth Circuit in this giant statement? This is their packet, 198 pages of all the things, affidavits, their original filings, the court records, right, transcripts, news articles. Everything is in this. Help us, help us, help us. Where is El Salvador in here? The order that says no removal to El Salvador. I haven't seen it. If somebody sees it or I missed it, I will come here and say, oh, there it is. Now we know. But all we see is the judge wrote in conclusion, Guatemala, Mama is in Guatemala. The attack was on the Papusa business. Papusa business is in Guatemala, even though it's closed down, but the nexus is to Mama. She's in Guatemala. So it's, I think, pretty cut and dry as far as we can tell. And the burden's on them. They don't get to just come out and say, oh, it's a ministerial error or it's a transcript error. The judge copy and pasted a sentence. Correct it then. Where's the correction? It's a pretty big error to get the country name wrong. So, and as far as we can tell, it doesn't exist. El Salvador is where Kilmar belongs. He's a citizen down there. He's not going to be attacked down there because Mama's in Guatemala. And so he'll be fine. All right. And so, my friends, thank you for sending those in. And thanks for sharing this one in particular out there with people who might have questions about how all this is working. Because I think this was a scandal and a scam. What's up, Rob White? Previous comment, the Democrat judge resigned because the IA judge was found at his house. Find illegal aliens at other Democrat judges' houses. Got it, got it, got it. Okay, so putting that together now. Find illegal aliens at other Democrat judges' houses, if you can find them. Yeah, and, oh no, did you guys see this? Trump and Zelensky were also meeting again at the White House. Wow, this one's pretty violent. Here's what this one looks like. This one may or may not be AI. You'll have to be the judge for yourself. here's what happened in the White House. Trump, solve this Ukraine. Quit it. Quit your temper tantrums. Okay. You're not going to have all of Russia. Okay. Relax. Just take it easy. All right. So things got a little spicy over there. Thank you, Rick D, for sharing that one. Whether that was AI or not, we don't know. But all right. So maybe that'll bring a conclusion to this long lasting conflict already. Finally. All right. So my friends, once again, thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging with us. Thanks for going through this stuff together. It is just an absolute treat and a pleasure, a privilege and an honor. And I really appreciate you. So thanks for your support today. We're, of course, coming back tomorrow. Locals members, hang tight. Otherwise, all of our YouTube members and the rest of our friends, we'll be back tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern for the members stream in the morning. If we miss you there, we will come back tomorrow to get into it again. Same place, same time. We hope to see you here because in order to get into the business that we need to attend to appropriately, we need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.